Good morning. Hello, hello. It's John Miller, founding attorney of Rock Solid Law and Title. And as you can see this morning, I'm not alone. I'd like to introduce those of you that don't know to Walt Unfricht. Walt is another attorney here at the firm, and we're delighted to have him join us for this fascinating topic. Obviously, we're in the real estate area of our practice today. We do close residential and commercial real estate, closing title and escrow professionally and on time. And in addition to providing estate planning, wills, trusts, all those other important documents that folks need to have. And then finally, enjoy representing entrepreneurial small business owners. So those are the three areas of our practice today. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate. The subject is why to have an attorney at the closing. So first off, what is title? And we say title, and what we're really talking about is a policy of title insurance. And there are two kinds of title insurance agencies. One kind is helmed by a person who has taken a test from the state and therefore qualifies themselves to provide title insurance. The other kind typically is a firm or title agency run by an attorney. Why do you care about that? Well, real estate law is ancient and slow to change, but when it does change, it impacts us all. So it's really important to know that the person who is handling one of your largest investments is somebody who is knowledgeable in real estate law. That's something we study in law school. And like myself, I've been closing loans over 30 years. So I have a great knowledge of real estate law. And Walt is also somebody who knows quite a bit about real estate law. He's an expert in that field. So you've got two attorneys here to help you through the process. In the largest number of cases, closings really doesn't matter because things go smoothly. But if you are the exception to the rule and something goes wrong, you need a gladiator at your side, a knowledgeable person who can and will fix that title insurance problem. I can tell you just a quick war story. Over the 30 plus years that I have been closing loans, of course, I began in 1991. That included the Great Recession, and you remember the real estate bubble. Prior to the crash, closings were going on left and right. And as in any good market, title companies were springing up like so many mushrooms overnight. And they were run by people who were doing things like selling cars or the week before. So it was people who really didn't have any knowledge of the industry. And I could tell you that they created a ton of title problems at the beaches and in other areas of Jacksonville, a ton. And that people like me spent hours and hours later trying to resolve those problems that had been created. So what is a title insurance policy? Briefly, I'll start by saying it assures and ensures that you have good title to your property against everybody else in the world. And that's why at Rock Solid Law and Title, we don't do closings that don't include title insurance, because if we did, somebody would come along with a problem and they would be out their insurance and they would want to look to us for the reason why. Well, that's just not reasonable because there are too many issues that can occur inland, and especially here in Florida. I mean, Florida has been known for swampland in Florida sales and things like that. Over the years, there have been lots of scams, lots of people, just in it to get rich quick and don't really dot all the I's and cross all the T's. What would you add, Walt, about title insurance?
Really, like you said, John, it protects you against claims from others regarding your property, whether it be creditors or others claiming rights to the property and ownership interest. It just safeguards your interest in that property and ensures that you're protected.
Perfect. So at the closing, if it is a mortgaged transaction, and typically there is a lender involved, there are two title policies that occur. The first one is called the owner's policy. And typically in our part of the world, the seller pays for that for the buyer, almost always in the counties that you're probably sitting in. So That is the more expensive of the two policies and is charged at a promulgated rate. Now, one issue I wanted to bring up, I will give title company, non-attorney title companies credit for one thing, their marketing. They have convinced the market that they are cheaper than attorneys. It's absolutely not true. It's not true on the front end. Their closing fees are the same as ours. It's not true on the title insurance because the promulgated rate they charge is the same one we do. And it's definitely not true on the back end when people who closed at the title company have to go and find a lawyer to solve the problem that's been created. Usually that's not found until they get ready to sell. And if there's a title problem, they will often queer the sale and mean that it takes a lot longer to sell. The second title policy that is at a closing when there is a loan is called a lender's policy. Now, the owner's policy stays in effect in favor of that owner for as long as they own the property, right? So if you buy a house and own it till you die, that policy ensures your title throughout your life. In the event that there's a loan, there's going to be what's called a simultaneous issue or lender's policy issued. There's a discounted rate for that. The borrower, the buyer, pays that policy premium, and that loan is in effect for as long as that mortgage is outstanding. In other words, until the note is paid off, until all the money borrowed is paid back. So it'll go away once the mortgage is satisfied. So those are the two different kinds of policies you need. Walt, did you have an example of why it's good to have an attorney at a closing?
Yeah, and I could probably go on for a while with examples of why it's beneficial to have an attorney at closing. One of the most recent events that I had that came up is it's typical for a buyer to purchase their property in a trust. A lot of properties are owned in trust for various reasons that obviously John can tell you more about. But I've had a buyer was purchasing into a trust. The lender had been made aware. We get to the day of closing. Everybody's excited, ready to go. Lender documents come across and the mortgage doesn't have the trust language or the trust listed, just the individuals were listed. And we were able to go in and alter the mortgage with lender's permission and change that to reflect what was intended by the buyer at the purchase. So things like that where legal documents need to be edited at the day of closing, or heck, I've even had sometimes where a new document was brought up at closing that needed to be drafted, whether it be an escrow holdback agreement or post-occupancy agreement, things like that. You're going to want an attorney and need an attorney to draft those documents. So having attorneys at the closing table with you allows for those changes to be made so the transaction can go through on schedule as everybody planned. And also you've got an attorney there to answer any questions regarding all these legal documents that you're going through and signing. It feels like you're signing your life away sometimes as a buyer. So it's beneficial to have someone there who can ensure your interests are protected and ensure that your questions are answered. So definitely very important to have an attorney there at closing just to ensure your interests are protected all the way around.
That's really so important because except for maybe when you sign an insurance contract, or if you are a business owner, the contracts you would sign and the documents you'd execute on purchase or sale or internal governance of that, for the most people, real property transfers are the largest number of contracts and legal documents they sign, certainly at any one given time or during one transaction, pardon me. So to have somebody there that actually understands them and is licensed to give you an opinion about them is really important. One thing Walt said was really, I mean, everything he said was great, but one thing really stood out for me as uber important. And that is that only attorneys are qualified by law to create legal documents for other people, right? People can fill in the blanks on documents someone else created for themselves, but to create a document from scratch, a person without a law license is not permitted to do that. That's called practicing law without a license, right? And you don't want to do that. So it happens, people do it. And I'm here to tell you, I'm the old guy in the room, practiced since 1984. So listen, they screw it up. If you want to put your investment at risk, go without a lawyer. But I highly recommend that you not take that route. I have an interesting matter on my desk right now that just came across. Long-term acquaintance called to discuss a situation, And that situation is that their family had purchased raw land, rural, on a lake out in the country in Florida. And, there was nothing there, so they didn't go visit it too often. It was just long-term investment, really. And so they recently decided to take a ride out into the country. And lo and behold, somebody had built a house on their land. What do you think of that? What happens? How did that happen? Well, I tell you, I 100% guarantee there was no lawyer involved in making sure that they had title to that land before they built on it. Okay. And if a lawyer had been involved, that lawyer better have a malpractice insurance policy, because that's how the payout's going to come. So, without giving a legal opinion, it's likely that that house is owned by the person who owned the raw land. And that person who has just spent all that money to build that house is going to have to make a deal to buy it from her, or at least the land underneath it from her, because they have gifted her a house. Okay. Wouldn't you think it would have been much less expensive to have a lawyer on board for that transaction? Right. So it's absolutely crazy that things like this happen, but they do. And they happen fairly regularly. So there are just some really good examples of why it's so important to make sure that where you close has a lawyer. Did you want to add something else, Walt?
The only other thing I can really add to that, John, is that sometimes, not very often, but complex legal issues do come up in clearing title on these transactions. For example, some people don't think or realize that any IRS debt or other issues like that, judgments, could attach to the property. And in order to have those fully resolved for the new purchaser, and in order for the seller to comply with their purchase and sale agreement and issue clear title, it's best, and you honestly need to have an attorney there with the knowledge to be able to clear those complex issues for you. That way everyone's happy, the transaction can go through, and clear title can be issued.
And just to be clear, as I was saying earlier, the cost to the parties is substantially the same as paying somebody that does not have a law license. Okay, so right now, realtors, I'm talking to you, because we know most people don't know a real estate lawyer. But people in the real estate field, like mortgage lenders, banks, and most especially listing realtors, do know better. And they do know people that can help out. So listing realtors, please, please take your customers and clients to a qualified closing attorney to get your transactions done. The pennies that those other people tell you they're saving you are not worth the risks of the long-term loss. We would love for you to try Rock Solid Law and Title. We've been at this since 1991. We've got a fantastic closing department. I now have a second real estate lawyer in the firm, which is really exciting for me. We have two ladies entirely dedicated to the real estate department. Each is a long-term closing processor who's equivalent to a paralegal in skill. And then we have backup staff to help them out as well, support staff, clerical staff that helps get the policies done correctly and to you in a timely manner. So our motto on the real estate side is closing professionally and on time. Your castle's in the sand in Florida. And we would love to have the opportunity to do that with you. If there are any questions, you can send them to questions at Rock Solid Law. That's questions, plural, at rocksolidlaw.com. One of us will get back to you quickly. And realtors, one other thing, this has always been a policy of my firm. I've been in this community a long time. If there are questions that arise on a transaction we are not on, call us. We will get you through that issue. We hope that you'll choose then to do business with us in the future. Obviously, we're in business to do business. So we would like to have the opportunity to show you what it's like to have really quality customer care for you and your buyers and sellers. Thanks so much for joining us on this video. I know you may be watching it later and not be watching it in real time. So if any questions have arisen during the process, do right. Questions at Rock Solid Law. I'm John Miller.
Well done, Frontier.
And we are Rock Solid Law and Title. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, guys.